Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a special meeting of Brant County Council. Attendance has been taken, noting that we have 3 councillors online, Councillor House, Councillor Miller, Councillor Bell, and Councillor Pierce has said his regrets. He's on vacation, and I think other than that, we're all here. Right? Okay, so we're all here. Approval of the agenda. I have that. I need it on the floor, first of all. Lucas and Jennifer? Councillor Kyle? I was going to do, okay, I was going to leave you till later, Steve, but I'll put you on right now if you want for other business.
Okay, I was going to just ask if we could add other business later, or do you want me to do it now?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to report in from the Economic Developers Council of Ontario conference in Toronto, and very happy to share that during the Awards of Excellence ceremony last night, the County of Brant won 2 very important awards, one for business attraction and retention for rural communities. Rural communities in this definition are under 50,000 people. And the second award was excellence in rural economic development, and both related to great efforts related to the downtown dig. And I just wanted to congratulate everyone on staff who deserved this award, and it was a very worthy celebration last night.
Thank you for that. I saw the pictures last night, and you look like you were having a good time. So thank you for that, and congratulations to staff for being so brilliant with the way that we handled the big dig. It could have been perceived much differently, and it wasn't. It ended up being obviously a award-winning scenario and a good news story. So thanks, Councillor House. Are you staying on for the rest of the meeting?
No, I'm heading back shortly, as soon as this meeting's over.
Yeah, okay. So attendance has been taken. Approval of the agenda. Who did we have there? We had Councillor Oakley and Councillor Kyle. Is there anything that anyone wants to see on the agenda? You're not supposed to put anything on, but if there's, no? Okay. All those in favor of the agenda then, please. Opposed? Carried. There are no declarations of pecuniary interest. There are no delegations, which takes us to number 5 on the agenda, which is a presentation for Heather Boyd, and I think she just handed them out. These are they. And we'll see if Heather's ready.
Mr. Mayor, are they online as well?
I'm sorry?
Is Heather's presentation online?
It'll be on the screen, Councillor Bell. We have it in paper here in the chamber, but you'll get it coming up right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Heather, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Through the mayor, we did try to send to the online participants a copy of the presentation. Not sure if it's come through yet, but we are working on that. Just an update on where we're at with the 2026 budget. We did have our initial presentations on January 22nd, and we did reopen the public engagement once the mayor's proposed budget was distributed to members of council. We had asked members of council that if they wanted some proposed amendments to be modeled out for the financial impacts, that they submit those to us in advance of this meeting, and to date we have not received any. So when we did the public engagement, we did the big full public engagement with the survey and all that as part of the long-term financial review, and we did that, reported on those results in December. We did a further engagement with the mayor's budget on January 15th, and we closed questions and comments yesterday. We did report on a few of the questions that had come up at the last presentation, and since then we had 2 more submissions. The first one didn't have a specific request, but called for a further examination of the budget drivers. So we did go through those on the 22nd. I'm not sure what specifically they wanted further information on. We don't have anything to follow up on. The second question, the 7.9% increase in the salary, wages, and benefits expenditures. The suggestion in the comment was that that equated to a 7.9% increase in staff earnings. We went through a bit of that in January, but I have provided some further details. 7.9% increase in that expenditure line absolutely does not mean that staff are receiving a 7.9% increase in our wages. We spoke in January about a big contributor to that is the community paramedicine program, which was never previously reported as part of our budget thing. So it's come in as both an expenditure and a revenue, but it does increase like the expenditures, but there is offsetting revenue for that. So it's a very wage heavy service that we provide, but it is fully funded at this time. Increases relating to annualized cost of positions. So there were some positions that we had approved in the 2025 budget that were for a half year or even shorter period in 2025. So there are some increased salary and benefit costs now that those will be a full year for 2026, those positions. And yes, there is some increases to union and non-union salary and wages with approved contracts and policies, and increases in benefit costs, not necessarily relating to new benefits or services, but just regular inflationary increases to those costs. So those are a good number of the things that go into why that line looks higher than anything we're actually giving as salary increases. Further, at January 22nd, staff were asked to look at the BMA municipal study and report on a number of metrics for council's information. So we've gone through the full study. There are a lot of things that we would like to look at closer. We're hoping that this year will be the year that we can spend a bit more time developing metrics and bringing forward our accountability and reporting policies for the long-term financial plan this year, which will use these metrics to kind of help track the financial health of the organization for future councils. So as a starting point, we did pull out some demographics from the comparator data. Not all of our comparators participate in this study, and not all of our comparators responded to every question. So sometimes you'll see some of these municipalities come and fall off these lists, but it's nothing we've done to take them out. It's just sometimes there wasn't information available. So looking through this, you can see, we're kind of probably about midline in terms of population size for our comparators. Land areas vary greatly amongst our group. In terms of average household income, we are, I think, at the top of that and well above both of the averages. And population density, I think this is an important one when we talk about trying to find efficiencies of scales with the services and infrastructure we provide. Obviously, we've talked about it countless budget meetings that we are pretty spread out municipalities, so our population density isn't very high. Weighted assessment breakout, this is something that we've talked about already through this budget process, and speaking to, where does the money come from, how much residential versus non-residential development we're seeing. We did provide before the tax income breakout, but this is slightly different. This is speaking to our assessments. So this is before we apply the actual tax rates. So you'll see 72.4% of our weighted assessment is residential. And then the next biggest one's commercial at 13.9, industrial at 8, farmlands at 4. Farmlands is obviously, aside from Haldimand and Norfolk, is well above, what any of the other ones say. And in terms of assessment, because farmland has such a lower tax rate, so the fact that a good portion of our assessment is farmland it's a great thing for the county, but it's, a difficult thing in terms of tax revenue. anyways, those numbers are there, just another time that we've been looking at, been asked about that a number of times. This here is another thing we talked about this year. We talked about ability to pay people's taxes. And so what we've done, we talked before about the increasing in taxes receivable, which is the taxes that haven't been paid, as a percentage of how much tax levy we've issued. So how much, and this just gives comparator data. It does show an increasing trend for across the board, but it does also show, that aside, for the most part, we're still well within what everybody's seeing in terms of ability to pay. One interesting note in the study on this was that usually around 8% is when it starts to become a concern. So when we start creating those health metrics and levels to keep a good eye on, that's probably going to be one of the numbers we bring forward. This is some net municipal levy information. So I've put in there the levy per capita, the taxes as a percent of household income, and then to try to give some perspective in terms of putting aside what your assessed value versus your real value versus what a house might cost in other municipalities. A straight up comparison that BMA provided was like the taxes that a detached bungalow would pay. So it's probably a pretty good indication of what you would pay in the county versus what you would pay for the same house in the city versus the other municipalities. So I put that one in as well. We always talk about roads quite often, looking at the cost per kilometer of roads. So I have put in here the maintenance on paved roads, both per lane, kilometer, per capita, the winter control, that doesn't include the sidewalks and parking lots, on the same two bases. I do note that we have reported, BMA has outlined that our unpaved road per lane kilometer cost is $5,274. So when we're talking about, the value of moving forward with gravel to hard surface, that's something to keep in mind. It may also be because as we are paving more roads, we have less equipment, so per lane, the cost is going up. But this came up just the other night. How much is the county contributing to parks, recreation, facilities, and programs? So I have the per capita cost for parks and rec and facilities. And I've also put in, because we have talked in the past about the revenue as a percent of expenditures. So how much is coming from non-tax revenue sources, rental fees and that. So there's the information. I would suspect this might lead into discussions at future meetings or future long-term financial plans in terms of how much we want to be capturing in terms of revenue. Libraries, because we've been talking about those lately as well. It just kind of shows we're kind of in the middle of the group in terms of our per capita spending on libraries. There's an awful lot of metrics. It's like 613 pages, the full study. A good number of those metrics I want to take back and kind of dive in further into how they actually calculate them off our FIRs. And we are hoping to bring that back forward in terms of the accountability and reporting policy. But we do hope that this study will help to serve a more prominent role when we're looking at our budgeting and our financial impacts going forward. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. If there's any questions, and then finance staff and myself are here to help walk through if anybody's bringing forward any amendments for this morning.
Thanks, Heather. Are there any questions to Heather about her report first? Councilor Chambers?
On the sheet with the tax arrears schedules, the pages aren't numbered, so it's.
Yep.
And I'm just curious about, have you got the page?
Yep.
The County of Brant 2020 tax arrears, 4.3, and then in 2021, it dropped to 2.7, which is a fairly hefty drop. I wondered if you can explain why that happened, because that doesn't happen that often. What was the reason? Just coincidentally happened, or?
Yeah, I don't know if 2020 might have been elevated because of COVID, and then it dropped. I don't know for sure, but that would be my suspicion, would be that 2020 may have been a higher than normal for that time period.
But I guess, so then there was no action by the county to cause that to happen.
Just one sec, the treasurer might have some.
Through the mayor, I'm not exactly sure the timing. There is somewhere in the recent time, we moved from 3 years in arrears to 2 years in arrears to shorten that period, and that might affect that number as well.
Councillor Bell and then Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to Heather and all the team, thanks for bringing back this data. The comparative data I find very helpful, and I look forward to you bringing back a more detailed report, which might indicate that we do have some areas for potential improvement. But I think what you showed us makes me feel fairly comfortable that we've got things under pretty good control here. I have one specific request, and that is, can you provide a quantitative breakdown of that 7.9%? I will go back to the resident that asked me that question. I want to give him the fullest answer I can. I like the qualitative answer. I would appreciate if I can give him the quantitative answer as well. Final comment on the distribution of tax revenue, so the weighted tax assessment. It's encouraging to see that our industrial level is twice the average. And my guess is that if you were to predict this looking forward, we would be seeing that going up, and alternatively, the percentage of residential tax assessment dropping accordingly. Is that a fair assessment, Heather?
Yes, I believe we are expecting a fair bit of industrial and non-residential this year over the residential.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of quick questions and comments. The first comment I would make is actually the number that Councillor Chambers pointed out also stood out to me. I'm curious if that might actually be an indication of, I think that year a lot of people were on the CERB benefit that year. So I'm curious if that wouldn't be, a lot of the people I imagine who are in tax arrears probably also would qualify for that CERB benefit that year. And I don't know if that does much for us because it's tax dollars. It's just moving around whose balance it's on, but I think that might be why that would be. In terms of the industrial tax rate and that balance, I'm curious if there's like a golden rule or an ideal that we should be aiming for with those ratios, or whether or not there's not like a common sense of where we should be aiming for that.
So we brought forward the ratio report already previously this year, but generally there's provincial maximums that we can achieve, and anything we change needs to be lowered, right? Any ratios against the residential, like if we wanted to make a change to industrial, we would have to lower the industrial tax ratio.
Sorry, just as a point of clarification, I'm not talking about actually changing the ratios, but just, how much we should be aiming for, like, in terms of trying to get more industrial tax base versus.
Oh, you're talking like
yes,
what we should be,
if there's a golden rule or 30%, okay.
yeah, there's different numbers come
Okay.
out from different areas, but, I mean, more the merrier usually is, because it does have a higher tax rate and does provide employment lands, and, balance is good.
Okay, perfect. And then the final comment I wanted to make was in regards to the comparative data with roads. We're looking remarkably efficient in terms of paved road maintenance, and considering that what I hear from a lot of people is they're very happy with how well we managed to take care of the roads. It's not an indication that we're not taking care of them well. So I'm just wanted to point out that it seems like we're doing an excellent job at being remarkably efficient when it comes to that, so, thank you.
Allison?
Thank you, Your Worship, to council. I just wanted to chime in on the tax ratios. A general rule of thumb for a healthy economy is 70-30 split.
Councillor Chambers?
Yeah, that's the general rule of thumb. The important thing is, I think to realize, and I think I'm correct on this, is that that ratio in Brant County has been improving in the last few years, which is trending to the better, which is, I think, a credit to the economic development staff that tries to attract the industrial assessment. So we're getting better. At one time, we were over 80% residential and less than 20 commercial industrial, so we're improving.
Any other questions for Heather on her report? See none, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry? Oh, Councillor Miller, you did, okay. You see your pencil, I don't see your hand, so you can, yeah, I got you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to ask Heather, you said it was $5,200 and something dollars to maintain a kilometer of gravel road. Did I read that right, or a lane?
That's what that's per kilometer lane. That's what the BMA study is suggesting for our numbers. I'm not sure what goes into that, but it is something that we should be looking at in terms of how do they figure that out and what bigger story that tells.
Okay, it seems awfully high. If that's the case, I think we would be wise to speed up our gravel to hardtop program, but it does seem a little bit high. So I just wanted to confirm that. So, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I think with the roads too, I mean, I've never had anyone ever say to me that the county of Brant was second to anyone else's road treatment. You can tell when you're entering and leaving the county of Brant, that's for sure. And all you have to do is look around. It's always that way. It's not a fluke that you might find it on a good day. It's just the way it is. So whatever we're doing and whatever it costs, we should keep doing it. Any other questions for Heather? Can I get a motion from committee to accept for information Heather's report? Councillor McAlpine and Councillor Kyle. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Heather. Next thing on the agenda is consideration of council's amendments to the budget. We didn't receive any, staff didn't receive any, but if you have some with you or in your head now, is the time to bring them up. Open it up to committee, council. Councilor McAlpine?
Just a question, because I didn't pull it out of the package here. I believe we gave donations or intended to for Lansdowne, and is that in this budget? I'm not sure what it was.
Allison can speak to it. Oh.
Yep. Through the mayor, yes, anything we did in terms of the long-term financial plan discussion is incorporated in the base budget that we presented from the mayor.
Okay. Do you know offhand what that amount was?
I know it was 200 for Lansdowne and 60 some odd for Woodland. 83, sorry.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm that. Thanks.
Yep. Any other questions? Councilor Chambers?
Through you, perhaps this be directed to David, and just a short preamble. The press reported a few days ago how we're doing the budget. And one of the things in the article was that some projects were delayed or taken out of the budget and some weren't. And one of it caused a mild sensation in the village of Scotland, or the hamlet of Scotland. I guess it's a village. In that the road reconstruction projects that had been scheduled, the press report that it had been removed, and the addition to these Brett Sports Complex wasn't, which led people to think, why are they taking the money away from Scotland to put to the arena when the roads in Scotland are in drastic need of repair? So with that in mind, I'll just continue. I'm referring to page 1221 in the capital program, and you can see halfway down that page, I'll just slow down until people find that, the project that I'm talking about, RDS 285. Everybody got it? Queen, Whitney, Isaac, Elgin, Church, Brant, Scott, Marcus, Scotland reconstruction. That pretty much is all the streets in Scotland. And that project was in the 2024 proposed budget, and it was delayed to 2025. Was in the 2025 budget, and it was delayed to 2026. Now it's in the 2026 budget, and it's delayed to 2027 and 2029. So I guess I'm asking for an explanation of why it's been delayed and keeps being delayed now up to 3 and 4 and 5 years, when it was identified in 2023 that the streets in Scotland needed work done. And the people in Scotland are not, they look at these things and they say, okay, it's delayed, and now it's delayed again. With that having been said, can you explain to me and the people of Scotland why their streets are not being repaired again in 2026?
Dave.
So thank you, and through the mayor to Councillor Chambers. The reason for the push off by 1 year, and I wasn't around in 2024, but I would imagine it's the same reason. It's that we want to know the results of the Scotland-Oakland Master Environmental Servicing Plan. So that's due to come for decision early this year. And the reason why is if we were to go in and rehabilitate all these streets today, and then depending on what the results of that study says, we might do it differently. So we just want to know what that study says before we go in and invest a significant amount of money to rehabilitate the streets. As an example, if there were stormwater management improvements, we would want to do that in alignment with the road reconstruction. And then similarly, if it was a very long-term solution as a result of that study, we would still advance the work, but it may not be in, what's the word I'm looking for here, as, I don't want to use the word thorough, but it wouldn't be as, if it was a 10-year solution, we would repair the roads for 10 years, knowing that we had to put infrastructure in the ground in 10 years.
And again, Mr. Mayor, I'm not arguing that. I'm just trying to bring out the information for the people that are concerned about what's happening. So I've got another couple questions relating to that. First question or first comment would be, and again, it's not being argumentative, but that same scenario has been used in the village of Burford for the past 20 years. I can remember when they did Highway 53, it was argued at that time that don't do anything to Highway 53 because there may be servicing in the village of Burford. That was 20 years ago. And the work was done, and now Highway 53 needs to be done again after 20 years. So with regard to servicing, that is a project that may take years and years and years to carry out, and even may never happen depending on the costs and whether it's economically feasible to do that. So if we keep waiting and waiting and waiting for servicing to happen before we repair the streets, then pretty soon the streets are going to be in such a state of disrepair that we're in a mess. And it could be argued, I think, that some of the streets in Scotland are at that stage now, and there have been drainage issues going on in the lower part of Scotland for at least 10 or 11 or 12 years and nothing's been done, all in the guise of waiting for studies to be done before the work is carried out. So how can I explain to the people of Scotland and perhaps the people of Burford, which are in the same boat, that your streets aren't going to get repaired until you get servicing? And that's an awful thing to say, and you're apt to get punched in the mouth when you tell people that.
So through the mayor to Councillor Chambers, I wouldn't put it until you get servicing, until we know what the results of this study are. And I just want to be clear, you know, in Burford, there is I can't remember what quadrant it is, but there's 4 quadrants, and there's one area that is surface treated roads, and we're advancing some of that work. And in Scotland, if the roads do need to be replaced, we will replace them regardless of servicing time. That's something we do. But we just thought we can wait until May of this year, May, June of this year, to really understand what we should be doing. So whether it's a more involved repair, or is it simply resurfacing? So I guess that's the best answer I can give right now.
And then, again, I don't want to monopolize this, but it's important because you got the Village of Scotland pretty much up in arms in that their streets aren't getting fixed. Is there any work being planned in 2026 in the resurfacing budget that will alleviate some of the concerns that the streets are falling apart? Or is nothing going to be done in the Village of Scotland?
So through the mayor to Councillor Chambers, as Dave has put together and responded, the plan is because of when budget is put together and when we need to know, and financially, nothing is planned in Scotland in 26 because we need to know what the answer is from the MESP to decide and make those decisions. So that's why nothing was planned to do anything in 26, with the idea that we know what will happen out from the MSP, what the plan is long-term, so we can plan for and do and start things in 27.
Just a final question with regard to that before I move on. There's been a lot of concern about brought to me through speaking with people at various things, the section of road between Scotland Agrimart and 24 Highway. There's a section that section is in really bad shape. And it's been repaired this is on the Oakland Road, from Scotland Agrimart toward Oakland, but that section between 24 and Scotland Agrimart is, in my opinion, not in good shape. And it may be because of the traffic in and out with the loads of fertilizer and that kind of stuff. And on the other end of Scotland, from where the construction started, in front of the Scotland School, that section of road there's a lot of work done there, and people are happy about that. But between the North Scotland Road and Four Pond Corners, I hope people know these landmarks I'm talking about, has not been repaired to the same extent as west of Four Ponds Corners and east of the Scotland village limits. And that section there is in kind of brutal shape too. So is anything being planned for those 2 sections of road in 2026?
So through the mayor to Councillor Chambers, the way that we do the repair, so Mark Eby does the patching and repairing, is that comes from our road soups. So that process is underway, but it's certainly something that we can take another look at.
And I guess I'm leading up to my final question. Is there anything that we can do in 2026 in the Village of Scotland to preserve their streets until such time as major reconstruction happens that we can add into the 2026 capital plan? And if we can do that, how does that impact the 2026 budget?
So through the mayor to Councillor Chambers, we wouldn't have a work package ready to go today for me to be able to say, yes, we can invest $500,000 on these roads. Because we do have those larger capital improvements planned for next year. So I can't say if we spend, you know, 800,000 or reprioritize some other areas that we're doing to address your concerns.
And finally, once the study is in hand, what I would suggest is, as soon as it's in hand, then communicate to the people of Scotland what the plans going forward with the information you have in the study in 2027. If it's an open house or some kind of a communication, I think that's very, very important, because I don't want to be, well, won't be sitting here anyway, but in 2027, when the council is doing the budget, if that project is delayed again, you may have the Village of Scotland sitting in the gallery here wondering why, again, 5 years after the project has been identified to be needed, it's still not being done.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Follow up with what Councillor Chambers is saying, and I did not hear Dave's answer on the previous question about the Oakland Scotland Road there at Agrimart to 24 and on the other side. I couldn't hear you, so could you repeat your answer, please? You said something about soups, and that's all I heard.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So through the mayor to Councillor Coleman, our patching program, so where if there's an isolated area that needs to be repaired, the process for that is the information flows up through our roads department, through our road supervisors, and then it gets transferred to Mark's team, who includes that in the larger tender. But that process is underway right now, so it's certainly something that we could flag to take a look at.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, could we have an update on that as soon as possible? Because that stretch, especially from Scotland Agrimart to 24, needs to be remilled, and it is sad. It's probably one of the worst roads we've got right now in the county, so it needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I think the only thing that upsets people worse than having bad roads is when they see that we've done something to them, and then 3 months later, we rip them up again. And they say, well, you know, we waited for 4 years, and now they've done this, now they're ripping it up. It looks bad, you know that it looks bad. It's like the big dig out front here. I mean, people say, you know, you didn't do a very good job leveling off to the curbs. Well, it's only the first coat of 3 coats. And not everyone knows all those details. So even if there were a quick fix for Scotland, which could happen whenever, and then the studies are finished and we have to rip it all up to provide for whatever the study says we have to acknowledge. So it's really a kind of a tough situation, but you know, I do understand that we have roads in St. George, obviously, that aren't getting dealt with either because of this growth that's coming to St. George. So, you know, why fix them when we know that the whole of St. George is going to be roughed up pretty soon? So it's sort of like that everywhere, but I do understand that it is a big problem there. It is a mess. So if there's anything to do, hopefully we can do it. I don't know that it needs to be a budget line, but I do know that we have reserves and we have contingency funds for that reason. I think you should put yourself on the top of that list.
Yeah, and I'm glad you say that, because that does tick people off if they think we're wasting money by doing things twice, and I understand that. The streets that are listed, the Whitney and Elgin and all, that's in the lower part of Scotland for the people that are wondering where that is. And those streets were not constructed to any type of urban standard or semi-urban standard in the beginning, and they're basically just tar and chip streets, and it wouldn't hurt to tar and chip them again as an interim measure just to keep them from deteriorating further. And I think that's what people are asking for, is that in terms of maintenance even, until such time as reconstruction, which is hugely related to drainage issues, and that's something that's not inexpensive to do, and it has to be done in Scotland. So those are the issues, and I just want to convey again, we're not taking money out of Scotland to build the addition at the arena, where that's not the way it works. And as a matter of fact, the addition at the arena is not requiring any tax levy from the way I understand it in 2026. So that's my spiel about the streets in Scotland. So I look forward to the study being completed, and I look forward to driving down Elgin Street next year at this time with the equipment standing ready to be doing the streets as soon as the spring breakup happens.
Yeah, if there's anything the county of Brant gets criticized for is having too many signs. But I think that if we do something temporary to fix, so that everyone leaves wherever they are with their hubcaps, we would put a sign up there that says this is a temporary installation, and explain to people, even if it's just a small sign somewhere where someone can take a picture of it. I mean, everything goes through Facebook in 15 minutes these days. So someone will take a picture of that sign and then explain it to the rest of the people in Scotland that it is a temporary fix. And that way, when we do rip it up again, we won't get those criticisms, because that is a bad criticism. I mean, not so much in the county of Brant, but I remember when Cambridge did that whole Franklin Boulevard thing, they thought they had it right, and all of a sudden it was all chewed up again and it went the other way. So, I mean, those people in Cambridge should be very concerned as to how much that cost by Zares there. And so anyway, I know that bothers people. So thank you for that, Councillor Chambers. And I think staff is here and noted it, and it's important. So I would think that Councillor Chambers should be somewhere near the top of that list, but they'll tell you that. So any other questions? Oh, Councillor Bell, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question of detail regarding social services. When the Mayor of Brantford brought forward his Strong Mayor's budget, he made an amendment to the assumption we made when we formulated our budget. And I wondered if staff had fully caught up with all the changes that were brought about by the Mayor of Brantford's Strong Mayor's budget, which directly affects our social services line.
At this point, because that matter has been sent to the liaison committee, we have stuck with what we had in our original budget. If additional funding is required, we will address that as part of the surplus report to find a funding source.
Okay, thank you for that. Second question, headline on the this week's Paris Independent: Brant opens 2026 community grants, funding reduced. It's not technically correct, but there is an underlying issue there that the amount of money that's available to our various organizations and clubs is indeed reduced. And I just wondered, before we've put the final stamp on our budget for this year, is there any possibility of adding to that fund that will make life easier for the various clubs and organizations that have traditionally relied on funding from the county?
If you're looking to me at this point, it would be council's option to increase that budget, but that's the only option I can see.
Well, I'm actually looking at the mayor, since it's a Strong Mayor's budget. This is perhaps one of the opportunities for the mayor to exercise strong mayor powers should he choose to do so.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't choose to do so, so I won't. But I think with the grants and having them opening up now, we do have issues with the Community Foundation. It doesn't seem to be working quite as well as we thought it would for the County of Brant. So I would leave it until we can go back and talk more about the Brant Community Foundation in general, because it's once they start doing grants and filling out forms and seeing applications, there's going to be criticism at every turn. And so to put more money in there is just to be criticized for more money being put in there by different people. So I don't think it's going to be a good result. But I mean, I'm here to listen to council. If that's what you want, that's what you want. But I won't change it on my own. It would have to be.
With respect, Mr. Mayor, I think the two issues are separate. I think the concern about how the foundation operates and distributes money is one thing. But the second issue is about how much money. is being distributed. And we made a conscious choice as council to divert some of the foundation or some of the community grants money to 4 specific charities related to gender-based and other violence issues. So I think it's, before we just close off on this, I would like to make a suggestion. I would like to make the motion that we increase the amount of money available to our organizations and clubs, separate from that which we've already assigned to those 4 charities. I suggest, my proposal is to double the amount that is available, and I would look for a seconder.
Councillor Miller, you want to speak before? Councillor
Yeah, I
Miller?
was just gonna say, since we're on the topic, I was gonna bring this up later, but Mr. Mayor, you did offer at one point, maybe we could sit down and meet with the Community Grants Committee, and I'm just wondering if that's offer still on the table.
No, the offer is still on the table. Yeah, that wouldn't take very much planning at all. I would need to know who is interested in sitting in on that meeting, whether it's a couple of councillors and some staff or just councillors, but whatever you want. Just give me direction and I'll set the meeting up right away.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Councillor Bell, you're still looking for a seconder, which we have in Councillor McAlpine. And what are you suggesting now, Councillor?
I would suggest that we double the amount which was available, which is $135,000 to 270, and that we take it from the contingency reserve so that the bottom line change to our property tax remains at 5%.
Questions? It's on the floor. It's been seconded. Councillor Miller?
Question, just a expression of frustration. I mean, most of the council supported that idea. I mean, I'll say I didn't, of taking the money out of that community grants and putting it towards not for charities, as you say, but for services. And again, very frustrating because as you found out at our delegation, those groups should have gone to the province first. So very frustrated with that. And I know firsthand how it impacts some of these services. So I don't think, I'll say, I don't want to relitigate the whole argument, but I don't think it was a really good spot to take the money of. So just frustrating to hear that, frustrating to hear it come forward again, because we should have known this ahead of time.
Comments, Councillor McAlpine?
Traditionally, how much have we given out in our grants program, say if you went back 3 or 4 years ago? Because it's continually been raising it up.
Could you move the microphone a little bit closer to Mr. McAlpine? Thank you.
We had been increasing it. I think last year was 385. And then before that would have been just a little bit lower. There was it 3 years ago we did do, when we split it in half and put some towards the hospital, and that number ended up being about 170, I think we gave away that year.
And that bottom line, so when we're giving it to our local community groups, was about 170 before, then you're saying?
Well, the year that we there was 1 year, and I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, that we split the community grants in half and put half of it towards the hospital, which was when we were at about 170, left us about 170.
Yeah.
But last year specifically, it was 385.
And out of that 385, though, we had some significant large grants out of that as well, didn't we?
No, that's all the ones through the community grants program. So that's like the 10,000 capital, 5,000 operating, and 5,000
Okay.
event limits.
Okay.
Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, similar to Councillor Miller, I don't want to relitigate this, but I do want to speak to it, given that the idea to take the gender-based violence funds out of this pot was my motion some months ago. You know, in previous years, it had been expressed concern that we're just pulling out of surplus, not having a specific source for those funds. I feel like the goal behind the Brant Community Fund, or Brant Community grants, and what we're trying to do with gender-based violence sits in the same sort of pool, which is why I chose to go after to pull it out of those funds. I'm not necessarily opposed to what Councillor Bell is suggesting, but frankly, I'm comfortable with whatever result we end up here, because this is what I anticipated several months ago when I brought it forward. Thank you.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will not support the motion that's on the floor right now. I can remember when we were less than $100,000 going up for grants, so.
Councillor Chambers.
And I won't support the resolution either. I think the way to do that is if a service club or an organization has a project that they wish to proceed, then they perhaps can come to council, and if the project merits taxpayers' funding, then at that time, it can be taken out of the contingency reserve and measured upon what's left in the contingency reserve. But to put it in ahead of time, it's a blanket amount, it's just asking for people to make up applications to get the money.
Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through you. And I would agree with Councillor Coleman and Councillor Chambers on this one. I'm not supportive of the motion. I think at the crux of the issue is perhaps a fundamental disagreement on what a grant is and what a grant program should do. And a grant is not something that is, and there'll be lots of people who don't agree with me on this, but is not necessarily something that you count on from year to year. So it's possible that depending on what our financial situation is each year and how our priorities shift throughout the year or the previous year, that some years we may not have as much to put towards the grants as we did a previous year. And that's just kind of the natural ebb and flow of how a grant funding pot would work. So I agree with Councillor Chambers that if an organization puts in for a grant and we have a pot to get, they can get what we have for this year. But if they did have a project that was exceptional or outside of what they were typically doing, they could always come to council, and at that time we could, if we do think there's merit, be able to fund that through other sources, through the contingency, for example. So I'm not supportive of doubling it, because I do feel that the decision we made back in the fall is a good one to use those funds for another community purpose.
Any other speakers? Councillor Oakley.
Through Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to speak to say that I agree with Councillor Kyle there, and I think this speaks moreover towards if we're looking to have a funding source for some of these organizations for base level funding that they rely on each year, perhaps we should have funding agreements with them rather than having a grant process. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Miller.
Just Councillor McAlpine asked a question about the amounts. The budget is set at 0.5% of our operating budget, so it's not a huge amount to the county. It is, however, for some of these organizations, a huge amount. And when we talk about grants program, see, unfortunately, the reality is some of them rely on it, but some of them need it, and it's not going to waste. They use it for enhancing life here in the county. And I'm glad the province doesn't look at some of the grants they give to municipalities in the same way that, is being suggested with these. So I'll leave it at that.
Anything else to be said, Councillor McAlpine?
One of the challenges we have is just sort of along the lines that David said, is that a lot of these small organizations do depend on these grants. And a lot of the time when they do come forward, then it's a chicken and egg scenario. We then tell them to go to the grant scenario. So I'm thinking like the heritage and cultural organizations, some of the small sports groups that don't have all the infrastructure to apply for bigger grants, to like Trillium Foundation and things like that. So I think that they are extremely important, and that's why I'm in favor of us this time. Until we get our heritage granting program that we're looking at doing in future years. Until we get that in order, I think it's important that we maintain this section, because I think there was a lot of groups that really struggled last year, and it's a time when fundraising is even harder, and I think it's even more important to have that base amount for these groups. And it's a way of leveraging our money in the community, so we get 10 times out what we put into these small groups, so I think it's important that we maintain that.
Any other comments before we call the vote? Councillor Bell has something on the floor. It's been seconded. Everyone's clear. It's about doubling the money for the grants. All those in favor of that? You got it? Opposed? You got that too? Perfect. Spencer? It fails 4-5. Councillor Coleman, you scratching your head or you? Okay. You're lucky you're not at a live auction, or you would have just bought, you would have bought a hockey stick or something. Your ears, okay. Right, moving on then. We don't need a motion or anything for this discussion. Okay, so I'm looking for someone to take us in camera, please. Councillor Chambers is going, nope, Councillor Chambers. Okay.
I have one more proposed amendment, if I
Oh,
might.
I'm sorry.
And that's, and I don't know whether this is in order or not, but on page 1224 of the capital program, right near the top, the third line down, Mill Street reconstruction. There's money proposed in 2026 and 2027. My amendment is this, and the general manager may comment on this. Off of Mill Street in Mount Vernon, there's a little gravel road called Douglas Street. And it would make sense to me to, when we're doing the work on Mill Street, that may be the time to hard surface Douglas Street. And I guess my amendment would be to have that say Mill Street / Douglas Street reconstruction. Doesn't affect the budget. It just maybe prioritizes that little gravel strip there to be done at the same time. And I'll yield to the experts.
Through the mayor to Councillor Chambers, we had already been considering this. It's just not marked that way, but when we're there doing the work, we thought it makes the most sense to do it at the same time. It's just not marked on.
That was telegraphed to me a few months ago, and I just didn't want you to forget it, so I just kind of wanted to memorialize that in the budget.
We think we would surface treat it, but we also intend to do some other surface treatment work as well. So somewhere in there, we would do it at the same time that we're in the area doing something else.
We all heard that.
Spencer, make sure you got that. All right, that's great, thank you. Any other comments or concerns? Okay, we're having someone take us in camera. Who was that? Oh, yeah. Councillor Coleman and Councillor Oakley. Before we take the vote, I also want to vote that, I want to vote on the fact that Kelly's here and Fred's here, and they want to come in camera with us regarding what we're going in camera for. And Spencer's going to read what we are going in camera for. And so we'll do that first, then we'll come back and vote on Fred Kelly to join us.
Through your worship, the motion to go in camera would be that County Brant Council convene in camera to discuss Section 239-2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality, Policy Development Committee in camera report of February 3rd, 2026. And then in addition, to permit Kelly and Fred to be in camera, it would be that Kelly Bernstein, Chief Executive Officer, County Brant Library, and Fred Gladding, Chair of the County Brant Library Board, be permitted to enter in camera.
Okay, and the only problem with putting them both together is we have to go in camera, and you might not want Kelly and Fred to come, so as long as everyone wants Fred and Kelly to come, we can do the two votes at the same time. Okay, we're going in camera. All those in favor? Okay. Okay, we're back in open session now, the special meeting of Brant County Council. Is there anything else anyone wants to add for the betterment of the county of Brant before we ask for a motion to? No? Okay. Councilor Chambers?
In terms of process, Mr. Mayor, if I understand the process correctly, once we adjourn today's meeting, then that signals that the budget has essentially met with the approval of council. And it would suggest to me that no further meeting is required on February, whatever schedule is. Is that what we're doing? Or are we going to come back then and
Heather?
I don't think there's any reason to.
So there being no amendments put forward, at the conclusion of this meeting, we would adjourn and the budget would be concluded. There's nothing for the mayor to veto, so the process would end with today's meeting.
So when we adjourn today, the budget is the budget.
Yeah.
And it's kind of unusual that we don't vote on that, but I understand the process. But I do want to make a comment. And if we did have to vote on it, I would support the budget. I commend staff for all the work they've done in presenting a budget that I can agree to. But I want to make special mention of the strong mayor's power and how Mayor Bailey took us through the budget, the mayor's budget. And I thank him for the process. It was, in my opinion, just an excellent way to proceed. And as you can see, I think all councillors are very supportive of that. And that didn't necessarily have to happen that way, but it did. And I think the mayor should take credit for that process because it was a good process. In some of the other municipalities with strong mayor powers, there have been issues brought forward by councillors and politically, call it what you want. We didn't have that here, and that's good. So I think the mayor should be commended for the process that he used his strong powers to put us through, and thanking the staff for that. And if any motion would be required, it would be just that, and then I'd be happy to move that motion.
Well, first of all, thank you for that, and thank you to staff for helping me with that. I'm so grateful for the timing of the long-term financial plan. It meant everything because I was able to capture all your comments, all your ideas, all your concerns through that process and just adapt it into a mayor's budget. I mean, it was tricky. I was very nervous. It's not one of the things I think I do the best. And I was very nervous, but I thought the process, and having gone through COVID where council stepped back, and back then Michael Bradley and I did most of the talking and decision-making for over a year without council, I knew that I didn't like that idea. I didn't like that idea of not hearing what everybody had to say during COVID. And Michael and I would say, well, what do you think Coleman would have said? Or what do you think Bell would have said? And we said that a lot when Michael and I were doing just everything because no one was meeting. And I didn't want that to be how I felt again about, I'll do this and I'll make it the mayor's budget and I'll grandstand and do all of the things that other mayors have done. But I wouldn't know what Coleman thought or I wouldn't know what Oakley thought. So it was the right thing to do, I think. And thank you for recognizing the fact that it was tricky, but it's over. It's a good budget. $1 million to the hospital. It's wonderful that we're that we did that. That's a big deal. So thank you for saying that, Councillor Chambers. I don't think we need a vote, though. I think the fact that nobody brought anything forward is an indication that everyone's happy with the budget, and I'm happy with the budget. I watched actually last night on TV Kevin on talk show defending his budget, and I think our budget went better. So thank you for that. And if there's nothing else, I will look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Oakley, do you have a question or do you want to adjourn?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I had a comment. If I may, along the lines of what Councillor Chambers was saying, because I assume we're going to be putting out a press release in regards to the budget. I would like it, if possible, that some of the because I believe pretty much everyone around the table has made a comment similar to that is reflected in whatever press release we put out, because inevitably we're gonna have to say mayor's budget, yada, yada, yada. But I think it's important that in that press release that we include that I think all of us around this table feel it is reflective of what we put forward as well. So I just wanted to make sure that that's in the public communication so that, again, for good or ill, we all are moving forward with this, so.
Do you want a motion? Do we need a motion just to ratify it, or? No, I think we're okay. So I'm just looking for a motion to adjourn now.